Selecting the right fit, key criteria for evaluating S2P technology. Really interesting. So I'm really looking forward to this discussion. And just now I want to welcome on stage Miklos Takac, Global Head of Procurement at Swissport, Paolo Ronzi, Procurement Director at Nippon Gases, Hugo Karelze, Head of Sales and Procurement Evangelist at Ruyo Integrations. Last but not least, the moderator of this discussion, so I'm relieved. And maybe better, because maybe not good if Zycus is doing this. Omid Kamami, CEO and Chairman of the Board at Procurement and Supply Chain Management Institute. Shortcut was easier, PSCM. Over to you, Omid.
Thank you so much, everybody, and welcome to the panel members. My name again is Omid Gamami, and so sitting next to me is Hugo Karelze, and he's head of sales and he's procurement evangelist at Rojo Consultants, helps with the integration of Zycus with SAP, and Miklos Takac is global head of procurement at Swissport. And so we've got a set of questions we're going to go through. And the idea here is to take you through the continuum of from the time that you think about getting a system and what are the key factors, what are the most important things that you want to consider, what are the challenges, to the implementation. And what challenges do we see during implementation? What best practices are there? And then we want to finish with taking a look at the future. And so that's kind of the flow we're going to take with this. At the end of this, I'll open it up and invite you to ask questions, and I'll just ask that you direct the questions to an individual if possible, either to myself or Hugo or to Miklos. So with that, I'll go ahead and get started. So as we look at the very first section, which is identifying business needs and evaluating the STP solutions, all of us have had challenges. Anybody who's experienced this, who's done these kind of implementations, has experienced tremendous challenges and also opportunities. And there was needs and criteria during this decision-making process. And so, Miklos, we're going to start with you. First question is, opening our discussion, you faced specific challenges at Swissport that led you to explore new technologies. So I'd like for you to talk about what these challenges were, how these guided your criteria for evaluating potential S2P solutions, and then how did you balance these needs with expectations for future scalability and flexibility?
It's a very complex question, but I think first I would like to explain a little bit about Swissport, because Swissport is a global organization, but quite decentralized. We are present in 6 continents with 45 plus countries and more than 100 legal entities. So all these aspects created an ecosystem, a legacy ecosystem, where most of the processes were all manual. And without being transparent, without centralized processes and policies. So where we are coming from is very important when we were selecting where we would like to go to. And of course, when, we would like to achieve more centralized processes, higher degree of oversight, higher degree of control, centralized spend management, centralized contract inventory, which we didn't have. The whole environment was very scattered and very, very local, I would say. Some of my employees even, or management even described Swissport as a franchise. But in the end, you cannot really run a franchise in an efficient manner if within the aviation industry. So we had to take a higher degree of control. Now we started with 3 areas. One was the contract management, which we just heard a very comprehensive case study about. And so definitely there the aim was very similar to what we heard, is to know the details, know where we are with regards to spend coverage, know the terms and where we have gaps, right, with regards to legal compliance and with regards to opportunities. Then the second area was the source to contract process because everything was very manual without much transparency. So how we select suppliers, whether we selected the right fit suppliers. And the third area was the very manual process of PO creation, and in many countries the lack of PO creation. So we embarked on implementing the P2P module. So all these requirements prompted us on looking for the tool that fits best our needs, and to meet the need for standardization, to fit the need for centralization, and also simplicity, because simplicity in our complex environment meant that we couldn't get. I mean, we had to make it as a simple solution in order that we get the required top management buy-in, stakeholder buy-in, and at the end the end user acceptance, because nobody would be ready to use a system or a tool and processes which are super complex, especially in our environment where it is a very operationally focused environment. Aviation is all about on-time performance delivery or safety delivery, and everything else, even the financials, sometimes are secondary. So we had to make a simple process, and this is what we are still working on making it simple. But the Zycus team is really supporting us to make it simple. So these were kind of the key considerations. And of course, we are talking about a technology platform. So the technology platform needs to have a solid foundation of innovation, innovative, a strong customer base, with a very strong oversight on the future, what's coming, because we are building, once we embark on a solution, a complex solution with such an overarching goals, then we want to make it future-proof, right?
Okay, that's great. And a couple of things jumped out at me. One was, this is the second time today I'm hearing about simplicity and the importance of process simplification, not making the environment more complicated and difficult to work with, because it makes, at a minimum, end user adoption very, very difficult. Was there any secret sauce for you as it pertains to taking this decentralized environment, which I think is the hardest to really drive this in? Do you have any just key nuggets you want to give us as far as that goes?
The approach we are taking is rather step by step. So what are the processes which are easier to centralize, and what are which are more difficult? And we go with the easier ones, right? We started, for example, vendor cleansing. Then, okay, central vendor registration flow. It is still not accomplished, but that is the process we are embarking on. Contract management was definitely one of the first ones that we deployed, because that is, first of all, it's fundamental to the business. Second, it is a matter of, let's say, collecting the contracts from a local, either existing local repositories or collecting those from simply like drawers and desks of some local offices. So it's a pain, whereas it's a painful exercise, it has tremendous value at the end.
Fantastic. Okay, let's kind of shift gears and talk about implementation strategies and technological integration, which is the space you definitely play in, I think, day in and day out, Hugo. So from your perspective, we're going to really talk about the strategies for implementing these technologies and what it means to drive successful integration. So from your perspective, as a technology partner, what are the key success factors that you see for ensuring a smooth implementation of a procurement system? And then getting more specific, how can organizations collaborate with their technology partners to streamline integration, ensure end user adoption, and drive long-term value from the solutions?
Thanks. So, yeah, first of all, maybe to just elaborate a bit, what we do here as technology partner for Zycus, we are Rojo Integrations. So we're building currently the integrations with SAP backend, companies that have a strong SAP backend and want to implement Zycus. They are depending on data coming from and to HANA. So that's what we're doing. And to come to your question, I think what we've seen, Omid, in the prior presentation, that's basically the approach you should take. I think Telecom Malaysia just described it really well. It's when we start such a project, it's all about governance. It's all about making sure, zoom out and look at the total landscape of what's going to be involved and who do you need to get on board to make the project a success from the basis. Because if you don't do that, most likely you won't succeed, because there's so many stakeholders, but if you don't oversee the dependencies or the consequences of not involving the right stakeholders and not getting the right input, we don't succeed. So as we are always a third-party company, of course, to the client, and we need to work together with other system integrators, because there is system integrators implementing Zycus, there is system integrators implementing SAP. Our starting point for a successful implementation and integration is always start working together with the teams and make a plan and identify the dependencies. Because what I've heard today, I've learned a lot, because first time for me here in this event, and I've learned a lot about Zycus, the product, and the customers. And you're well advanced and well ahead of everybody else, I think. If I look at customers, they have more legacy systems, they don't have the capabilities that has been shown today. And in order to make the most out of Zycus, you need to make sure what is then the weakest link, because that's the one that needs to be improved in order to get everything out of Zycus. I don't doubt, listening to everybody here today, that with Zycus you can do everything you want, like today and future state. But there's also systems in place, they're not that far advanced. So you need to work out these things. So the governance approach, as described by Telecom Malaysia, that's exactly the approach we always take as well. First, make a good plan, identify the dependencies, and be transparent. I think in this morning's presentation by Heineken, it was also described, be transparent from what you want to achieve, what you can achieve, what you cannot achieve. Build a good roadmap, because if you don't, there's going to be expectations which you're never going to meet.
Absolutely. And if I could share a few insights myself, I'm going to date myself here. But I first instituted e-procurement at Intel Corporation in 25 years ago, exactly. And I still have some scars. There's a few things that stand out of my mind that I think are relevant today still. And the first one was never automate a bad process. It's always streamline the process first and improve it, define the to-be process, then automate that. The second one was to drive an organic adoption model. And what that means to me, for instance, if you think about when online banking came about, there really shouldn't have to be a campaign, please use online banking, please don't go to tellers. You'd have to be crazy to keep, or be over 75 to want to keep going to the tellers, because the value proposition is so overwhelming that it sells itself. You don't need a marketing campaign. And so the spirit to me is to create a solution that's so valuable that it doesn't require procurement to do a road campaign to try and force adoption. And then the final big takeaway I have is having a technology partner, in this case Zycus, that is collaborating with you on problem solving and you have shared KPIs with. And I say this for the most simple reason, that you're lucky to only implement one of these once or twice in your lifetime, but they're doing it hundreds of times. They have so much more experience than any company, and they see what companies do well and what mistakes they've made. And so we definitely have to learn from that. I'm going to switch gears now and move on. Actually, I have one more question in this section. And Miklos, this is for you. And so considering the critical role of user experience in successful technology adoption, could you walk us through the steps your team at Swissport took to ensure the new system would be well received? And what approaches did you employ for training and change management to ease this transition?
Thank you. Well, because we were rolling out multiple modules, we actually adopted a different approach for different modules, simply because there were multiple stakeholders, different complexities, different countries involved. So for the S2C module and for the iContract module, we adopted a global rollout at once, even though in stages, but it was it applied to all the countries. We asked all the regional and local procurement team members to start using the new tools practically from 1 week to the other. But we implemented those, or we rolled out these requirements in phases. So for iContract, we started, okay, let's load first the global contracts that are easier accessible. And then as a second phase, let's look at the regional local contracts. We are still chasing some of the local contracts, but so maybe it's a never-ending phase. But I hope that we will get to the point when all of our contracts will be in the Zycus repository. For iSourcing, we started to manage when we rolled out initially the most simple sourcing events. And then as a second phase, after the team got familiar with the tool and we got the confidence that we will not lose too much time, then we went on to the more complex sourcing events. And as a third phase, now we will start to manage the sole sourcing activities as well through the tool. So on the other hand, for P2P, it is a completely different approach, because it is a staggered approach, country by country rollout. Each country has some different challenges, and so a higher degree of, let's say, focus is needed. Now, with regards to the trainings, we trained, first of all, we took the master users who've been part of from the very beginning in the implementation roadmap, and then they started to create the materials, the training materials, whether it's recorded sessions or presentations with some visual aids. Also took the Zycus success portal information and presentations, which are also very, very helpful. And in a comprehensive way, try to spread the information among the different teams. Now, they also trained the regional key users who further trained the local people. So kind of as a waterfall cascading down the information. And on a periodic basis, we are refreshing, we are checking, monitoring the adoption, and then checking the compliance.
So what is the key takeaway? If you were to summarize in 2 sentences, what's the biggest takeaway you want people to get from your answer here?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway that we shouldn't underestimate the importance of training and the importance of proper project management. And it is, maybe we would like to be completed in a month or two, but we just have to manage our stakeholders' expectations that it is a very important training and learning process, and we need to put effort and resources in it to be successful.
Okay, perfect. So now I'm going to shift gears here, and we're going to talk about future outlook and technological advancements. So we've moved beyond system selection and criteria and beyond implementation. Now we're going to talk about the future. And so as we look to the future, we want to see what are some of the anticipated impacts of these technologies, their role in shaping these procurement technologies. And so, Hugo, I have for you a question. As we look towards the future of procurement technologies, event-driven integration is emerging as a game changer. Can you elaborate on how this technology is likely to shape procurement strategies in coming years? What benefits you see in terms of real-time data exchange and the overall impact on business efficiency as well?
Yes, thanks. Yeah, so what we've seen with Zycus, what is possible, you can really work data-driven. And so in order to feed the system with the right data, you need to make sure that everything that gets to Zycus has been enabled also to deliver the right data. So event-driven integration is a technology which is coming up, or which has been around for quite a while, but it's coming up quickly now. It basically makes it possible for systems to deliver their data in real time, because businesses nowadays are all about real time because of online, but also because of the growth of the ecosystem they operate in. So one of the best examples of event-driven, so then you understand what it is Netflix. If you're able to, watch your series of film, it just gets fired to you within milliseconds. That's why you can see your films, your series, streaming coming to you, because they have an unpredictable demand, but at any time of the day, they have millions of users using their service. So that generates billions of hours of content. So you need to be able to stream that data on demand. So what is the game changer here? To give you an example from the industries that you're all working as well, we work for a global manufacturer of windmills. They have legacy systems and they have procurement and sales systems. So the sales were out selling windmills and they wanted to get, from the pricing configurator, they wanted to get the information about the windmill they were selling. Now, HQ was providing support to 65 countries around the globe. And because of the system they used, which was a legacy system, it sometimes took up to 4 to 6 weeks before the pricing configurator got the data that it needed to put together an order or a proposal. And that basically had to do with the fact that the system was not ready to deliver this data accurately, correctly, and in time. So what did we do with event-driven? We made sure that we took not only the data from this master data hub, but we just made a sort of copy within the event broker. This made it possible for the sales systems to ask to the event broker, give us the latest update on the windmill, because I only need the latest update and pricing information, and deliver it, and we can make a proposal. So we brought back the cycle of providing the information from 4 to 6 weeks to 4 hours. And we're now working on it to get it under minutes. So imagine, instead of putting a proposal out 6 weeks after it's been required by a customer or a prospect, to have a turnaround in days instead of weeks. It's just an enormous impact on revenue. It's an enormous impact also on your reputation, because if you ask one of your vendors to come up with a proposal and it takes more than a month, you just don't feel like they're very engaged. They were very engaged, the only thing is the systems were not ready. So event-driven integration is all about decoupling systems and making data available in real time and making the right data available in real time. Because that's the other part of this. If I listen to Zycus, there's lots of AI in there, but more data doesn't make better AI. The right data makes good AI, and that's part of the future. I think what event-driven will provide is the right data to the right application, so you can leverage AI better.
Okay, that's great, and I just got the 5-minute marker. And so I would just add quickly that I think event-driven integration is going to be a step in the journey. It's inherently reactive, and I think we want to get to predictive, because event-driven waits for the event to happen. We don't want to wait for the late delivery or for the end user to engage if they're engaging late. So predictive analytics and predictive actions around stock depletions and supply chain disruptions, potential disruptions, I think those are all going to be useful. Miklos, we have a question for you, and then we'll try and wrap it up here. Considering your expectations from Gen AI, how do you envision solutions like Merlin enhancing your procurement strategy at Swissport, and what metrics or KPIs do you envision to measure success?
I would structure in 3 areas, because this is what I see. On the transactional side, we're already using Gen AI in PO and invoice matching, trying to determine mismatches. So there is a financial, a well tangible financial benefit in this error detection. Also in tax compliance, we are using Gen AI to identify non-compliant invoices for tax. Now, the areas where I see, and it is really, Gen AI can be really compelling, is in intake management, for example, where we Swissport, we are really struggling with. We have a very limited number of purchase requisitions or POs submitted by the business. So I'm really foreseeing as an intake, as a Gen AI-driven intake management tool, kind of like leaping through one technological stage. So instead of, let's say, forcing something on the business that, okay, now you start doing these manual purchase requisitions, I would be able to offer them a solution which is making their life easier, which is not kind of a push, but it is something that they want to and can adopt in a simple way. The third one is probably the smart tools for contract negotiations. We heard earlier today how efficiently, let's say, we could start using legal resources. Legal is always a tricky area, right? Their bandwidth is limiting in many areas of the business. So if we can help to get this bandwidth increased, I think we shall really look forward to grasp every opportunity to do that. And the KPIs are driven by all these three, right? So if I look at on the compliance side, the spend on contract or the invoices versus POs or purchase requisitions, all these KPIs shall increase and shall be enhanced by the use of Gen AI, including the let's say the turnaround time for contract negotiations when we talk about the legal aids.
Okay, fantastic. And in the interest of time, I'm going to go to the last question, which is for me in Paulo's absence, and I'll dramatically shorten the response I had to. And the question is, what specific technological capabilities like AI, quantum procurement, are you excited about? Am I excited about? And how do you anticipate these technologies as delivering strategic value to procurement beyond just automation? And so what I think I'll not do is repeat a lot of the things that you heard today. And those are things I came in with on my list. I'll just hit a few things I feel like I didn't hear. One is I feel like we'll start to see sort of an augmented digital workforce and what I call the rise of the knowledge worker. The nature of procurement, the skills we need in procurement are going to dramatically change. And today, what I see in working with clients, corporate clients in the Fortune 500, around 70 to 90% of every day is spent by every procurement professional in unplanned activities. Go back and ask your staff, and that's what they'll tell you. And so this presents the opportunity to dramatically reduce that to 10 to 20% and then get much more out of our workforce. In terms of cost, we traditionally, with these solutions, we look for cost savings in terms of internal process savings and then in terms of contract savings that we get with suppliers and consolidation and with bidding events. There's two places that there's cost savings that I didn't hear us talk about that I think are bigger than that. The first one is in taking costs out of the supply chain and identifying, using AI to help identify cost inefficiencies in the supply chain that can be streamlined out, surgically removed, not 10% savings, but 100% savings by removing it or streamlining it and reducing it. And the second area is in product and service design. And in my experience, there's usually about 18% excess cost baked into the scope of work or spec just because of inefficient design. They went custom instead of standard. They gold-plated when they didn't need to. Features were there that didn't need to. They solved the problem with the wrong solution. Those two areas I feel like are dramatic cost savings opportunities. And just the last area I'll mention is I think with indirect procurement, I think AI is going to start enabling us to do what the government does. And I never thought I'd say, let's follow the government, but the government does cooperative procurement. So for instance, they have 2 cell phone contracts for the whole United States for $12 billion. You know, we can't say that. Well, we've got all independent contracts for tables and chairs, all independent contracts for rugs and carpet, all independent contracts for HVAC systems. And I think AI is going to enable us to start collaborating on the things that every company is buying, independent of their industry. So those are just a few areas. All the other areas were mentioned, I think, by the very smart people here today.
Thank you very much, Miklos, Hugo, and Omid. And applause.